All right, first question from the review of the practice exam. Find the big D. Okay, so you have a radical. The radical has to be positive. Cannot have a negative number in there. That's a freak. So your first step is to solve for x. Why? Well, I need to know what numbers make this 0. So I'm going to set it equal to 0. Now, I'll move the x squared over to this side. And then I'll take the square root. I mean, you can factor it. It doesn't matter. Don't forget the plus and minus. This is very important. When you take the square root, you got to get both roots. So you're going to get plus and minus 2. So I'm going to put this on the number line. Now, why am I doing this? I need to know the numbers that make that negative. Those are the freaks. Those are the numbers that break the function. I throw them away. So I have to determine where this is positive. Those numbers are okay. So if I know where it's 0, any other number is going to make it positive or negative. So first I find the numbers that make it 0. These numbers are okay. They're not freaks. The square root of 0 is 0. These numbers are fine. Now I'm just going to pick a number in each region. Let's say I pick -3 over there. In the middle, I'll pick 0. And then let's say I pick 3 there. Now I got to test them. If I put 0 into there, this is cool. This worked. I got a plus. But if I try to put -3 up in there, now you get, if you screw up your signs here, you're going to screw up who the freaks are. This doesn't work. This is +9. So you get 4 take away +9. But that's -5. So this gave me a negative. That didn't work. These are freaks. So put it, freaks. And same thing, you're going to get the same thing if you test 3. You're going to get 4 minus 3 squared, which is 4 minus 9, which is -5. All right, I'm doing this half-assed, but this is the idea. These don't work either. Your domain is right there. So your big D, all the numbers that work are between -2 and 2. If you plug in 1, it works. If you plug in -1, it works. If you plug in 0, it works. If you plug in 1/2, it works. -1 1/2 works. All the numbers between here, cool. Any number smaller or bigger than the -2 and 2, those are the freaks, and they break the function, all right? So your domain is right there in the middle. I have to see this. I need to see the number line and the test points. All right, find the inverse. Remember, you put the little -1 on the f for inverse of this function. So the first thing I said to do that class was wherever f of x is, you put a y. I mean, f of x is y. But then I told you switch them. Replace the y with an x, and everywhere you see an x, you put a y. Well, there's only one x in this case. Now you solve for y. So your first step is going to be subtract 4. That knocks that out. Now I have to get rid of the third power. So the opposite of powers is always a root. So that's why their exponents are fractions. So the opposite of third, which is cube, is cube root. So you do the cube root of both sides. And now you're left with this. Now this is, you gotta be very careful, this is the hard part. I have to get rid of this -1 over there and move it to this side. But when you do the +1, this dude is not gonna be able to get inside that root. So you have to write this really precisely. This +1 cannot go in there. If you want to be really careful, you can show that this +1 is not in there. And so that's gone. But now there's a 2. I have to divide the whole thing by 2. And again, you have to be super careful here. You can't just put the 2 over there. This 2 has to divide this whole thing. So you have to make absolutely sure that the 2 goes under the whole thing. So then it's going to cross out. And then you're going to call that f minus 1. So now I'm going to write it all pretty for you. All right, I'm going to write cube root x minus 4. I am going to put parentheses around it just to emphasize that that +1's not in there. And then the whole thing over 2. Very picky. You got to make sure you write this 2 does not just go underneath the 1. It doesn't just go underneath the cube root. It's underneath the entire thing. So if you write it wrong, it's going to cost you. One more inverse. This time it's a fraction. This is probably the more complicated one. Now to save time, I'm just going to call this y. So f of x gets replaced by y. Poof. Now the step said everywhere you see y, you put x, and everywhere you see x, you put y. And then you solve for y. Now this is hard because you're solving for y, but there's more than one y. So your first step in this problem is going to be to cross multiply. This has to go over there. So you're going to times these dudes by x. I'll write it nice and careful. I don't want to skip anything. Whoop, this is a y. I almost wrote x. Now distribute the x over here. So you're going to get 3xy plus 4x. Now, here's where the big move is going to come in. I need everything with a y on this side. The reason is you're going to factor the y out as a greatest common factor. Everything without a y has to go to the other side, to the right. So everything with a y on the left, everything without a y on the right. So this dude's moving over here. And then this dude is going to move over here. So I'm going to cross him out. I'm going to cross him out. This way I'll have them on the correct side. So on this side, I'm going to have 3xy, take away 5y. On the other side, I'm going to have negative 4x. I like to write the letter first. Now here's the step. You have a y there and a y there. Factor it out into the front. I mean, this is the move. It's the only way that you're going to be able to solve for y properly is to factor out. Now instead of having two y's, I have one. It's like a great trick. And then divide both sides. So I'm going to just skip to that step, right? This is going to go underneath that. So you get negative 4x minus 6 over 3x minus 5. But this should have been a y. But your final step is to replace that y with an f inverse. So I just skipped that to save a couple of seconds. All right, so again, switch x and y in the beginning. Start solving for y. Cross multiply, crisscross, distribute, collect the y's. Everything with a y on the left, everything without a y on the right. Factor out the y, divide, and then it's over. So this is the inverse function.